I'm Monica Curtis. I am the Senior Director with the Pembina Institute, and we're very proud to be hosting the Getting Connected workshop today, where we were able to bring together a wide variety of actors within the transportation sector. So fleet operators, utilities, the service organizations that support those, municipalities, and a number of different kinds of organizations. Some of the vehicle producers were with us as well, to just really understand the connection points and the different places that we see partnership opportunities and opportunities to learn and build as we grow electrification of our fleets across Canada. We're going to be starting this panel today to just really dig into what are some of those opportunities and some next steps for how we can continue to build this opportunity within our industry for electrification and be able to really grow this sector of our industry. I'd like to just start by welcoming the 4 members of the panel today. And I'm going to be asking each of you to introduce yourselves, talk a little bit about your role and the activities that you're focused on relative to electrifying your fleet, and then talk a little bit about lessons learned in being here today. So Jean-François, I'll start with you.
Great, thanks. So my name is Jean-François Veilleux, work for CIMA. Just a quick introduction to CIMA Plus. We are a coast-to-coast Canadian engineering firm that works on a bunch of stuff, but mainly my focus is on the electrification of transportation. So we've been doing projects for the last few years on from planning the electrification all the way to commissioning and integrating those systems. Today we had a really great day with the workshop, and I think one of the key takeaway was that we had people from everybody around the table, but from every aspect of the business, from the utilities to the users and everything. So and everybody has the same challenges, and to see that everyone was in the same mindset to try to tackle those challenges was really interesting. We've talked about the utility process, the interconnection process, and how it is challenging to get that electricity to everyone because there is a huge surge in electricity requirements. And I think there is a good path forward. Coming from a background on microgrids, there was some interesting talks on how can we get those microgrids to help, and how can we make sure that we get the right energy in the right place so that we can use it for charging, all those solutions for fleet management, that kind of stuff. So that was really interesting.
Great, yeah. Next in the row is Matt Wilde from RMI. So Matt.
Yeah, hi. My name is Matt Wilde, RMI. I'm a senior data scientist at the Rocky Mountain Institute, and it's like a market-driven climate think tank. Specifically, I'm on the carbon-free transportation team, and I've been building tools, and specifically this one tool funded by FedEx GridUp to forecast EVSE needs throughout the next 10 to 15 years using telematics data. So it's going to be it's a map that right now covers the entire United States down to a block group level, and we're going to expand that to Canada coming soon. So something I learned today, I think what really struck me is that the only way forward to solving these challenges are going to be everyone communicating and collaborating together, like getting together like this. The fleets need to talk to the utilities. Utilities, need to talk to the fleets and the charge operators. And there needs to be a way forward. And I think the only way forward with that is just everyone being in the same room and talking.
Great. Thanks, Matt. Aaron Silver.
Excellent. Thank you, Monica. So my name is Aaron Silver. I'm the Manager of Transportation Initiatives on the Climate Action Team at Toronto Hydro. And what that means is that our team is focused entirely on supporting the climate action goals of the City of Toronto. Our team's brand new. We were formed over the last couple of years, and we are here today talking about transportation. I have colleagues who are also focused on electrifying buildings through heat pumps and hot water heaters. And we're just here to support the next phase of electrification, something that we've done for over 100 years, but now based on the interest in this room, obviously a lot more interest now when it comes to net zero goals. So that's a little bit about what we do. And then I'm just going to echo what Matt said. A clear lesson learned from this morning is how important it is for us to engage with each other in these forums. and the importance of us to work together, because that's how we're going to achieve these important targets.
Great. Thanks, Aaron. And the last on our panel today is Chris Henry. So Chris.
Thank you, Monica. Good afternoon. My name is Chris Henry. I'm the director of the national fleet for Purolator. I manage over 6,000 vehicles in our fleet. We are currently deploying over 100 electric vehicles in our fleet with plans to introduce roughly another 150 more with a goal of, as we get to our GHG goals in 2030, to put about 3,500 vehicles into our fleet to make sure we can hit our GHG goals and to drive the electrification program. I would echo the same components that the gentleman before me have in terms of collaboration. And I think this event and this forum and these other breakout forums are important pieces for all of us to collaborate to grow. This is very much still a burgeoning industry in electrification. We talked about making leapfrog jumps a little bit earlier, but I think the message here is that we have to build the foundation. We're getting there. I think we need to continue to pursue it, and I think that's one of the most important messages. Is there were a lot of people here who are gathered to continue to build that foundation for electrification.
When we start talking about something, electrification of our fleets is new. It's not brand new. Some of you have been working at this for quite a few years already, but we're still in the early stages of developing this industry. And so the first thing I always think about is what are some of those big challenges the barriers that are keeping us from really coming to scale in this space. And I'm hearing each and every one of you echo one theme, which is that we need partnerships, both to address those barriers, but even just to understand those barriers. So I wanted to start with you, Aaron, because the electricity supply and that I loved someone's quote today was we need a dictionary that translates from utility speak to fleet speak so that we can actually come together and really understand what it is we're even trying to solve. So Aaron, can I ask you to start just by that challenge that we face around the electricity system and how understanding each other's language might start to build that?
And I like to think that our team is that dictionary, that we're here to have those early conversations with yourselves to talk about what the process looks like to expand electrification that might exist or create a new connection, but that we're providing you with as much information as we can at the outset at no cost to provide you with more information about what that path looks like, so that then you can work with your consultants and your contractors to determine what works best for you, what solution works best for you. One of the things that we heard loud and clear last year at this forum was that companies want to know how much it's going to cost to add power to your existing site and how long that might take. So we took that back, and over the past year have developed a new approach to providing estimates, both with how much capacity is available on the grid, as well as how long and how much that might cost. So we're having those conversations early on before you pay $1 for any design work that needs to be done, provide you with that level of information, and kind of walk with you to make sure that you have the information that you need. You're not finding things out well down the road after you've ordered a bunch of equipment or invested a lot of money. We want to make sure that we're providing you with some direction. So that's something that we've heard loud and clear and are continuing to build on.
Really critical piece of that partnership to build this industry. You used the word information. Matt, I'm going to turn to you for a minute. One of the work that you're leading right now is really around a comprehensive and really ambitious mapping of electricity availability in the U.S. and looking at partnering with many of us to bring that kind of information and capacity. Can you talk a bit about the data that it takes and the partnerships that would take?
Yeah, exactly. So the data is, in the US at least, we have very detailed telematics data from basically what they simulate is everyone in the country and all of their movements, including commercial vehicles and fleets, through Google's vast knowledge of everyone. And we can use that information to follow people along a given day, and see where they would go, how long they stop for, how long they charge for, or if they were an electric vehicle, where would they be charging? If they're going to the grocery store, they're going to work or school. And so we can build that up and create like a load forecasting tool as with different scenarios of vehicle electrification. And I think it's really challenging is the fleets, because fleets tend to not want to give you their data, because they're very secretive. They don't want anyone else to like steal their zones where they're going to. And I think the other challenging thing with fleets is that there's just such a variety. I talked to someone today, I didn't even think about this. It's like, the movie industry, they go and rent trucks everywhere all the time, and I never even thought about that's like another thing to another sector of fleets that needs to be thought about and taken into account. And it's like really, I mean, for me, being in these conferences and talking to the actual fleets is great, because you learn how people actually move and how they actually use them. And so it's you get a much better understanding of what how to model that in the future. But I'd say one of the connections that really needs to happen is, I think it's starting to happen, is getting the fleets together in one place and just saying, like, look, we're not going to steal any of your data, and if I can just know, if I can get your telematics data, I can predict maybe in the future what kind of needs you're going to need, what your electricity needs would be, and I can transfer that and give that information to the utilities, and they can make actionable plans with that.
I'm going to turn Chris and then Jean-François. Each of you either are building out infrastructure, in the case of Veilleux, Jean-François, or are operating fleets. Talk to us a little bit about the benefit or those barriers that you're really having to face. And Chris, I was particularly thinking, you've talked a lot today about iterating. So try something, learn from it, and then build to the next. And you keep doing that until you reach scale in one way or another. So maybe if you could talk a little bit about the barrier that you're facing in the implementation, and then I'd be curious, Jean-François, the same question for you, but more from that supplier support side.
We run into no short list of barriers as we've gone through electrification, and again, with each one we have to overcome them as they come forward. When we first started our project, one of the first one actually was just resources, just people to work on the project itself. A lot of us were working off the side of our desks, had another job, and trying to put electrification into place. You very quickly realize that it's a failed effort to begin with. This is a fairly intensive piece of work involving numerous stakeholders, involving a lot of outside third-party vendors that you have to work with. So trying something just to, within our own function or with a couple different functions in the business simply wasn't plausible. So first and foremost, we had to ramp up. We had to ramp up our team, we had to ramp up our organization to be able to support kind of what our plan was down the road. And then as we started to get into it and we started looking at, what are all those components we're going to need for electrification? All right, we're going to need, infrastructure. So we're going to need, switch gears, transformers, then we're going to need vehicles, we're going to need all kinds of other elements. Very quickly you realize that the supply chain, certainly as it stands currently, was a constraint. Having to wait, 8, 9, 10 months, potentially even longer for certain equipment to come. And then just when you think, you've got the equipment and everything solved, you decide to go talk to your local utility and find out, well, you're going to have to wait another year or 2 years before you can even get power to you. And so, but that's on us from a planning perspective. So again, we had to go back and ensure that we were planning effectively. So, for us, part of that barrier was actually just not even being organized as an organization. So we brought in a PMO group to help us organize to get us going. And, I'll reiterate what I've said, plan, plan, plan all the time. And when we talk about iterations, we've had to go through various iterations because of those barriers that we run into. And I'm sure it's similar for a lot of others who run into the same barriers, whether it's timing or availability. So we've come across each and every one of those. And, really all you have to do is just keep moving forward, keep adjusting your plan, keep looking for different options, keep looking for different solutions. And again, we haven't found the perfect way yet. We haven't found that a great road. We continue, as I said before, we continue to meander down this. But, we're getting there. We've deployed. We have success. We're trying to make it grow now at scale to see how much further we can go in chunks of time.
And Jean-François, the same question for you around as you're starting to actually build out projects, some of those barriers that you're finding and
So I'll put it that way. They always like it's Matt's data provide information to Chris so he can build a fleet, and then I've got to make it work as a consultant to make sure Aaron's happy with this thing so that we make it work. I think the challenges become always, Chris, you've talked about the supply chain. Because we want to get to the end right as soon as possible, we've got to go and buy equipment right away. And this is one of the challenges. You said planning, planning, planning. If you don't plan it right in the beginning, you might end up with the wrong technology, and then you're like kind of backtracking, trying to make it work with something that might not be optimal for you. So planning in the beginning is the biggest hurdle for us, because when we come in, unfortunately, at some point, some decisions were made, and going back on those decisions makes it a bit harder to get the project in the right spot. So yes, planning, but a phased approach is, in my opinion, the way to go on those big challenges that we've got. If you're implementing a small fleet of 2 or 3 trucks or cars, that's not the same issues. But if you're implementing 1,000 trucks or 1,000 vehicles, then going with a phased approach so that you can learn from your first mistakes. And plus, Aaron's going to be happy. You won't need that much power right away. So I think that is the right approach to go with.
yeah, that's great insight. That planning, and then fix the plans. When you've already surfaced a number of what I would call conditions for success, as you've been working in this space and learning and growing your fleets and your supports, a lot of the conditions for success really come from that planning. The other 2 areas that we heard a lot today at the Getting Connected conference workshop was around regulation and the macro view, and then the micro view, which is the people, change management inside your organizations. I'm going to start at the micro. So Chris, I was going to start with you and just talk about what is that change management that we have to pay attention to, that soft side, and then I'll be interested to ask a similar question as the rest of you.
Sure. So the adoption of the change management electrification in our company, while it actually happens for the most part at the frontline level, where we're seeing our people want to drive our vehicles, they get engaged, how we operate logistically. I mean, it is a top-down process. So we have to start from our board, then to our senior executives, and to our directors and people on down. What we've seen, quite frankly, is our front lines have adopted quite quickly. They enjoy the vehicles, they enjoy the ride. We've heard back quite favorably from them, and we've actually got quite a bit of feedback from them. Quite frankly, they're very good at giving us feedback, whether we like it or not. So we get a lot from them that help us improve the organization. But the key to it is to have a pillar of change management inside your project. So we have put a change management staff or people inside to support it, so that not only once we go out to roll to adopt it, but there's ongoing support for our people. So whether that's training, whether that's just conversations, whether that's feedback, we have people who are constantly in touch with our front lines. So we're at 3 locations right now, and we have people who are constantly hearing back from our drivers, from our sorters, to ensure that what the change we've placed on them is effective. Knock on wood, so far it's going well. But the most important thing at that level is we're getting that feedback in terms of how can we change the vehicle? How can we change the charger that we use? How can we better use or park our vehicles? How can we better set up our installation in the terminal so that we get the most effective use of our vehicles? So that feedback from a change management just helps reinforce the change that's actually happening, which we believe right now is quite positive.
Great. Matt, I'm going to ask you a similar question around change management. Is you're approaching new partners for your organization in the fleet operators and other entities that have the information for the mapping that you're looking to do. Talk about some of the people soft skill questions that we need to. Matt, yeah, sorry.
My bad. So
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think on a macro scale, too, getting back to the large things, we are seeing in our projections uh, the amount of, to meet the load curves we're seeing, the amount of load demand, you're going to need a lot of chargers. And so that's going to mean a lot of technicians, so many chargers per technician. And that also means that much draw of electricity means engineers to build those transformers and those substations. And so it's going to take, I think, a lot of building up of the training and skill set to get there. Like, we have to, I think education is gonna be really important. Vocational schools, programs like that to train these technicians that are gonna be necessary to meet the need that we're projecting that's gonna be there.
Yeah, and I want to ask a similar question of starting to think about the role of the consultant, and you're working in that space between the different players that are coming to the table. So can you talk about some of the new relationships that you're having to foster and
sure.
explore?
We were talking about change management, and those new technologies will come with the different, and we talk about the training new people and getting people on board from university degrees and technical degrees. But it is going to shift, even the operation is going to shift for something that is managed by people. It is still, people are still going to be there, but more and more are going to be on the software side. We're talking about fleet management, we're talking about charger management. We want to reduce our electricity consumption so that we can fit more chargers inside what we got allotted for us. So there's going to be a bunch of, everybody's talking about AI, so I'm guessing that's going to come also. But at this point right now, the software is going to be the key aspect to managing all of that efficiently without, with getting it the most block for your money. But it's going to come with changes. Everything that was done manually is going to be done with a computer now. It's going to be done automatically, so it's going to have to be changed for that. So there's new players coming in that business related to that.
Yeah, that's always interesting. Erin, I want to ask you to talk a little bit about the macro. So we heard a lot about regulatory change and the need for flexibility within the utility system that doesn't exist today. So as a utility at the table today, can you talk a little bit about that regulatory change and how you see it working today and some of the change management that you see coming?
Yeah. So, I mean, Toronto Hydro operates within Ontario. We have 60 plus other local distribution companies that we work to serve the various populations across the province. And it's, perhaps a more unique approach than is taken in a province like British Columbia or Quebec. And one that I think just speaks to an even greater need of working together to ensure that a customer who's connecting in any city in Ontario has perhaps a similar, more consistent experience regardless of where they're connecting. So one of the things that the regulator has done is started to release some electric vehicle policies. There's a new procedure that's coming out later this month that's going to try to bring some of that consistency. And then we also heard this morning the Minister of the Energy announce a new EV rate that's going to be coming. And that's something that we also work closely with the regulator in terms of implementation on. So some of the things that we do as a utility when it comes to the regulated environment that we operate in.
I think at this stage, I've asked a couple of questions. I want to open it up to the floor. There is a microphone there, so we'll take a couple of questions from the floor and then we'll come back and.
Hi, good conversation. I want to throw out a question to Purolator and potentially Hydro. With relation to the fact that we're looking at electrification of our fleet, switching fuels, there are new opportunities and there's demand for increased capacity. Has Purolator, for example, looked at the opportunities with relation to combination of technologies, battery energy storage systems, vehicle to grid, and has a conversation occurred between the utilities in terms of, integrating these technologies? Another question quickly is in terms of cost assessment, a comparison with respect to your fleet in terms of a fossil fuel based fleet. Have you done an assessment as it relates to costs such as maintenance, operating costs with respect to fossil fuels versus your electrified fleet, reductions, increases, etc.
We've done a full business case assessment of the cost of electrification versus fossil fuels, what that looks like over I think we've gone as far as 15 years perspective to understand what that's going to look like. Certainly the return on investment is going to take about 7 to 8 years, depending on how far and how fast we go and how many vehicles we put on the road. There's no question this is an expensive proposal, right? Electrification is not cheap, and it's going to take time to garner that return back in terms of the investment. But the hope and kind of the promise of this over time is that battery electrification and batteries are going to get less expensive. Vehicles are going to become less expensive. As we start to grow at scale, we should see infrastructure become less expensive. That's the hope. But we still have planned for it, to be as expensive as it is today. So with that said, we realize that this is an investment. It's a longer term investment. But for our communities, for our organization, for our customers, going green is the way we need to go to GHG reduction. So we're willing to put that investment out to make that investment into the property, into this. Now, I'm sorry, your first question again. You want to go back?
Yeah, I was asking in relation to looking at technologies, in terms of combining technologies, battery energy storage system, speaking with the utilities about vehicle to grid technology.
So we've looked at multiple types of technology. For now, we've settled on electrification. We believe that's the one that's furthest ahead with respect to what we can implement, what we can deploy, and what we can deploy effectively. We will continue to look at things like hydrogen. Vehicle to grid, that's probably something down the road for us. It's nothing, in the near future. It's on our radar for down the road. We want to get the electrification set up first. We want to get that started. We want to get it put in place. We want to test it. And as I said in the previous panel, look, we've heard lots about all these vehicles, how far they go. We want to test that first. We want to see what the range is, what the capability is, and how that can manage. We will continue to innovate. We'll continue to look at new technologies, and those will probably feed those in, because we are going to go kind of in a measured way as we deploy. There won't be any kind of big bang or anything like that. So as we go, we may implement other technologies as we go forward. But for right now, we're going to focus on the electrification of our vehicles.
Ask you to chime in as well on this question and around the technologies from the utility perspective. Integration.
Absolutely. So from an electrification perspective, certainly our primary focus is making sure that customers have electricity when and where they need it. It's something that we've done for many years and something that we're doing very successfully right now. We recognize that investments need to be made to keep up with that, and have done a number of forecasts to understand different scenarios that we can look at over the short to long term. So that's certainly where our focus is when it comes to capacity and grid readiness. Then also, we also have our own fleet, and of course you've seen our trucks and cars out on the road, and that's something that we're electrifying as well. So we have just over 30 battery electric vehicles in our fleet right now, and we were one of the first utilities in Ontario to add a electric bucket truck to our fleet. So that's currently being used by our training team, and we look forward to it being out in the public. If you follow us on social media, you will have seen that we recently decided on the paint design. We chose that through input from the public, and as we will be adding that to our fleet, and you'll see it out in the public as well. So we kind of need to be doing both our electrification of our own fleet, and then being there to distribute the electricity to make sure that all of our customers are able to do the same.
Thank you. I just have one more question, and this is in relation to funding and how you look at the opportunities that are available. Is Purolator, for example, looking currently at utilizing any funding that is out there? For example, tapping into CFR credits. Are you looking at also doing any kind of carbon trading?
So far, we have applied for the incentive programs, the ZVIP, CVIP programs that are out there. We will continue to look at other opportunities from an infrastructure perspective in terms of looking at funding. You know, it's one of those things that it's nice to have. It's great. It doesn't, you know, take care of the you know, the whole cost or price of it. But right now, that's kind of the main thrust. We've applied to several incentive programs. We haven't gone much beyond that at this point in time. It's not to say we won't. We won't look at them down the road. Some of them are very good. They're very, you know, very affordable for, you know, or very effective for, you know, for probably medium, smaller fleets as well. So certainly would encourage others to go ahead and try those incentive programs, because I think it's one way to, you know, to offset some of those costs and to get yourself into a position where, you know, if you want to try out a couple vehicles or you want to try it at a location or terminal or in a, you know, a specific geography, you can do that. But you know, it's we've tried a few here and there.
I wanted to see if you had any additional comment on the incentive and use with the customer base.
Well, yeah, for sure. But Chris talked a bit about it, but the incentives often goes farther than just electrification. It goes on greenhouse gas emission reduction and that kind of stuff. So I'd say it is based on province by province. Also, they've got federal funding, but we support on the on that. But we're not the one applying as a consultant. So.
I think we can take one more question from the floor. Is there another? I'm sorry, just where the light is, I'm having trouble seeing who's at the mic. Oh, no, maybe we don't have another question from the floor. Well, then you get my questions. So, yeah, I will ask this one. So one of the things that's come up a lot is one of the challenges that we face as an industry is how do we come together around the macro issues? So utility regulation is a macro issue. You've raised the question, came up right now with this, you know, the role of government in both incentives for supporting activities specific to your fleets, but also the question of government's role in providing structure to allow for growth. So I would ask, wanted to open up that macro question around where do you see opportunity for coming together as an industry around those infrastructure. And infrastructure, I'm going to go like this. You can interpret infrastructure in a couple of different ways. You know, it's the basic things like utility infrastructure and having it in place, but there's also regulatory infrastructure around having stable pricing for some of the values that electrification can provide. So I'm just going to go right down the row and ask each of you to give us a comment on that.
So I can start as a macro part. I think it all comes down to getting together for sure, but we got to make sure that we've got the same interests. And the interest is making us go from, we are at the beginning at that curve. We were talking about it. We're at the beginning of the EV adoption. Yes, we've got EV consumer cars for 10 years now, but we're at the beginning of those fleet transitioning to actually being electrified. So we all have that same common goal, and we're all going to have to live with it. So we got to make sure that we all pitch in and we all try to find solution that everybody agrees with. And that's going to start with Matt's data, making sure that we've got the right data, and we've talked about it today at land. Getting the right data is not always easy. People are often inputting that data, which is not always right. Sorry, unfortunately, humans get it wrong. So getting that data so that we make sure that we get good decisions making by everybody on it. So.
Yeah, and to add to that, exactly that. I think that the data is good to have, and you know, it's the predictions, the forecasting we want. We want to be able to tell people, or especially utilities, like this is what, you know, this is where we see the load coming in the next 10 years, 15 years. But I think also some part of connection that really needs to happen is some standardization between fleets and utilities, like having some sort of common form. That it seems like exactly what Aaron's trying to do. I think that's going to be a really important thing to implement across all the provinces and all the utilities.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's so important is we can, at a macro level, we can give certain information from a utility perspective. We can talk about, how a customer is configured, how much capacity there might be, perhaps what your historical load looks like, based on billing information. But one of the questions that we can't answer for a customer is, what are your needs? And defining your needs from a fleet perspective, and the amount of power and load management that might exist, those are important data points that the more information we have earlier on, the better. So I think exactly what Matt and JF just said, all of us working together to answer those questions puts us all in a better spot. And just to go back to what Chris was talking about earlier in terms of planning, if a customer is ordering equipment before the utility has been engaged, we likely have to order the same equipment. And if you're waiting 6 to 8 months for something to come, we probably have 6 to 8 months as well. So how can we make sure that is happening at the same time rather than sequentially and extending the timelines? So planning, early adoption. I see many of you in the audience we work closely with to answer those questions, and we would like to continue to do so.
Chris.
I think
Right,
it's a
sorry.
question out here, or the intent would be to set each other up for success. So by working together, by whether it's planning together, understanding each other's expectations. So where in what regions or what areas do we plan to electrify? How many do we plan to electrify? What kind of power do you have? What support do we need? So I think having that dialogue that gives everybody that kind of view to where the current landscape is at. Where do you plan to go? How far out do you plan to go? I think that dialogue and that discussion is the key. I mean, when you talk about it at a macro level, because I think that it helps then to influence government regulations. How much power? We can't have one person potentially taking all the power in a certain area. How does that get regulated? Who gets it? So I think that dialogue where we are all sitting together and sharing that information. I know it sounds a little socialistic and that type of thing, but at an initial stage where we are right now at the maturity level, we need to do that so we can again set that foundation that allows this industry to grow. Otherwise, we're all going to run into the same problems where you have to start and stop because you didn't get this, or you forgot to this, or you didn't get in the right timeline for others. And I think what we've heard is people are willing to share the information. People are willing to talk about their plans and how to get there. It's now just a question of putting all that together so that we can make the ecosystem work effectively.
Great. Thank you. I wanted to just at this point thank all of you for joining us today. We really appreciate your attendance and question and interest. And what I wanted to do just with our last few minutes is just to go up and down the row one last time with a question around, what do you want to take away from today? What would you like our audience to take away and do? Or what would you see you taking away from the workshop today and the conversations that we've been having, both in the panels and in the hallways? And I'm going to start in the middle. Matt.
Sure.
Won't even give him time. Here, I'll talk for a minute so he can think.
No, it's okay. I think I got it. I think one of the things that was really struck me today is there's a lot of uncertainty in terms of electrification of fleets and how this is all going to work on the fleet side, the supplier side, the utility side, the OEMs, everything like this. And I think that, at least for my part, for what I can do, I think having more data will get us be able to make these predictions, these forecasts, and knowing or having an idea of where load might be coming will get us some way there. It won't eliminate the uncertainty in other areas, but it'll get us partway there to be able to do this better, more reliably, and so utilities can feel more comfortable to build this infrastructure so that the fleets can get it.
I'm going to go in the order in the supply chain. Aaron.
We have, as I've said, engage with us early and often. We're here to have these conversations. We want to hear from you. We want to be here to support you on your electrification journey. We have a booth in row 100. Please stop by, talk to our team. We'd love to learn more about what your plans are and how we're going to support them.
Jean-François.
I'll go a bit sideways and say we've been talking about challenges all day and all of those hurdles that we're going to face and all those barriers, but I think the important takeaway is that it's not something that's impossible. It's not something that is that difficult. We're at a point where, yes, we are still learning. We're in that learning curve. The industry is learning, but there are so many solutions to bring, and there is so many ways to make it work. The key is planning, 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 and making sure that we do it right. But I want to make sure everybody takes away that it is not something that's impossible. We're going to make it. We're going to be there, and it's for the best for the future.
Thank you. Chris?
The key theme for me here is that we see common challenges, common problems, common issues. And I think by, having these forums and getting together, we're articulating, these issues so that we can start to work on them together to move them. If you looked at the graph of electrification, we're kind of on that slow, steady slope. I think we're getting close to that hockey stick point because we all are learning, we're all iterating, it's getting there. We're not quite there yet, but I think, by having these dialogues, by getting together, we're going to get there quicker because we're then working to solve each other's problems. There certainly, as you see out here, there's lots of technology, there's lots of vendors who are all working and bringing new wonderful new ideas. And I think it's just a matter of time. Again, our experience is that it works. It works for us. Our drivers go out, they run their routes, they run, they come back. They still have plenty of power in their vehicles. We're not polluting, you know what? And as I said at a show last week, for the 100 vehicles that we have, for all you people that drive gas vehicles that took that 14-cent hike on fuel, well, we didn't take that 14-cent hike on fuel last week on those 100 vehicles. So it works. We like to get as many other people involved in this industry as possible. We realize that we have an obligation, as maybe one of the larger partners here, to help support others and to share information. Well, Matt, we'll happily share information, Matt. So to share as much as we can to help this industry grow.
Great. Well, thank you very much for joining me on the podium today and being part of our panel. And thank you for your participation throughout the day. The Pembina Institute was happy to host the Getting Connected workshop, and just want to acknowledge all of the Pembina team that's here today and made that possible, as well as our sponsors and supporters that participate throughout the day. And then for those of you who are joining us in this audience for the first time today, we really appreciate your participation and in learning around the opportunity for partnership and the value of partnership over and over again. The technology is the easy part. It is the people and bringing the people along. And we've heard a lot about how we could work together across the industry to really come to scale in a meaningful way, to have great benefits for our companies, as well as for our workers and our customers. So thank you very much for joining us. Thanks to all of you.